Hey everyone, this is Tracy Friedlander. You're listening to Crushing Classical, redefining a thriving classical music career. On the show today, I have Fabiana Claure. Fabiana is a pianist and the founder and director of the Music Business and Entrepreneurship program at the University of North Texas. She is also the founder of several businesses, the Superior Academy of Music in Miami, Florida, and a coach for musicians in her program, the Musician's Profit Umbrella. Today we dive into the conversation around starting a business, how she helps musicians not only think like entrepreneurs, but to take action in starting a business right out of school. Fabiana and I talk about her path to becoming a business owner and how she feels about helping musicians keep their creativity alive during the conquest of learning and developing a successful business. Fabiana is still an active performer and has created a virtual piano recital with repertoire highlighting women entrepreneurial composers, which you can access now on demand. You can access this concert plus many other free resources on her website. You can also join her free Facebook group, Musicians Creating Prosperity, to join the conversation. You'll find all of those links in the show notes. Let's get started. Hey, Fabiana, welcome to Crushing Classical.
Hi, Tracy. So excited to be here.
So happy to have you. So here we have Fabiana Claure. That's my best pronunciation in Spanish as possible. I'm so happy to have you on the show today as a pianist and a key player in the entrepreneurship space for musicians. I'm so excited to have you here and hear your point of view on creating a business in the music world. And I actually had a conversation with, I feel like every time I have a conversation with pianists, I feel like they're a little more tapped into that because as a pianist, it's not like you have a lot of jobs in orchestras. Like as a violinist, you know that there's like 20 violins in each orchestra, whatever. You don't have that luxury as a pianist. So tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got started as the entrepreneurial minded person you are as a musician and also as a business owner, and just a little bit about your path to where you are now.
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. Well, I agree. I think there's an entrepreneurial chip in pianists that is quite unique. And it's just been for me a journey of self-discovery all along, and it continues to be because I started really immersing myself in the world of music entrepreneurship towards the very end of my studies in my doctoral program at the University of Miami. They have a wonderful music business and entertainment industries program. And I started studying it there, but in retrospect, as I understood how I had done everything in my life up until that point, I realized that in fact I had already been very entrepreneurial. I just didn't know it. I didn't realize it. And looking at how musicians work, it's almost something that it goes together. It's hand in hand, even in the history of entrepreneurship. In fact, the earliest term, I don't know if you know this, but the earliest definition of an entrepreneur in the Oxford English Dictionary of 1897 defined an entrepreneur as one who puts up musical performances. So that was the actual earliest definition of entrepreneur. And it only later went into the business world to become more associated with the world of business and commerce. But it actually started from the definition of a musician. An entrepreneur was someone who was considered to be a musician, someone who put up musical performances. Because if you think about it, Mozart, he composed the music, he played it, he organized the orchestra, he put together the rehearsals, he sold the tickets, he promoted the event, he fundraised, he went to the patrons and had to really get everything sorted out. I mean, he did it all. He was a one-man show, and met like him many more. So in reality, it's not a new thing. It's just that it's not something that musicians are aware of from the beginning. They just kind of fall into it as life happens. And so for me, it was no different. It was really a matter of, yes, I went into it formally in terms of studies at the end of my degree, but I realized that I had been doing a lot of entrepreneurial things much earlier than that. But it was just wonderful because by immersing myself into it more intentionally, I got to understand like why things work, right, in the business world versus just doing it without knowing. It's kind of like when we're performing, practicing our instrument, and somehow we play a passage and it comes out just right one time. And then we're like, oh, this is great. And we try it again. And it could come out as well, but it could also be a disaster. So unless we know what it is that we did to make it come out right, unless we are aware of the right strategies and techniques, we're not going to be intentional enough to get it right every single time. And in business and entrepreneurship, it's the same thing. You may be successful, you may be doing things kind of like by accident, but there's nothing like actually going deeper and knowing why things work in the world of business and in entrepreneurship and in our music industry. What are those elements, those characteristics that allow certain musicians and entrepreneurs to be successful? And so I see it as the same way. I was able to just go behind the scenes of entrepreneurship and understand from both a theoretical as well as a practical perspective what it is that is needed to have a successful career in music. I wrote a dissertation during that time called The Entrepreneurial Concert Pianist, a study of the trends used in creating a successful music career. And I got to interview a bunch of concert pianists and managers and really see, you know, what is it that allows pianists to be successful and to understand, you know, how to create a successful career, knowing that the definition of success is a very subjective and broad one, right? That it really depends for each pianist, each musician, their own. It's a matter of deciding their own success version, right? Their own definition of success. So that was a wonderful opportunity to really dive into entrepreneurship as a study, right? As a field of study. And then, of course, not surprisingly, as I was finishing my doctoral degree, my entrepreneurial bug started growing, and my husband and I came up with the idea of creating a music school. We had witnessed a lot of educational deficiencies in American students throughout our time in different universities. We both met in Cuba. I'm originally from Chicago. I was born in Chicago. My parents are Bolivian. So I grew up in different parts of the world, mainly in the United States and Bolivia, and also in Cuba. My husband and I came to the United States together in the year 2001, 2 weeks before September 11th, by the way. And so we came under full scholarships, and we were shocked to see that our first theory class was like a major triad. And, you know, we had completed our studies in Cuba, and we were, you know, playing already at a higher level, which is what allowed us to get the scholarships. And we could not believe that the new freshman students at a university level were starting with basic theory. And so that was a bit of a shock for us to see the amount of gaps that American students had entering university, because there are no real countrywide established pre-college systems. Like, it really depends, right? And so that didn't happen in Cuba because there's a very strong like pre-college educational system in terms of music. So we were like, wow, this is like, Americans have so many gaps. And then we noticed all our friends in school were also international. All our fellow scholarship recipients were all international. There were no American students with scholarships. And so we were like, this is strange that only international students come here with full scholarships. And then we finished our program and we went to SMU in Dallas, and the same thing happened. We got full scholarships, and all our friends who had full scholarships were also international. And then we started to notice the same thing happened when we went to do our doctorates. We were both on full scholarships, and all our friends were international as well, who had full scholarships. So then we're like, there's a gap at the pre-college level that happens where American students aren't able to get to this high level before they apply for universities. And they're always having to take these remedial courses. They're not competitive enough. They just don't have a way to really compete with international students who come from like conservatory training, very strong programs. So we went to this conference called the MTNA, the conference, the Music Teachers National Association conference, and they had a whole panel talking about like what happens when college, college-bound students prepare for auditions and they just show up in their flip-flops and they're just like very unprepared. They don't really know what to do. And this was a panel of professors who were kind of, discussing the need for for this pre-college level education to be taken more seriously. And on our way back in the plane, my husband just said, what if we were to create a music school that addresses this problem? And I remember just looking at him and thinking, how in the world would we do that? Like, we were still doing our doctorate degrees. We were pianists. I mean, we had no idea how to, yeah, we taught out of our home. We had our private studio and we had taught in different settings, but to build your own school, I mean, that's like a huge thing, right? And plus we had our studies to still finish our doctorate. So at that point, it was just like, that sounds like a great idea, but how on earth would we ever do that, right? Um, so it's like everything. It starts with an idea and a vision, and then you're just like, okay, it depends on how obsessed you become with it to actually make it happen, right? Because people come up with brilliant ideas every single second of the day. It's about, what do you do with that idea? Do you just let it stay there, or do you put it away, or do you do something about it? And so, I don't think we really obsessed about it too much, but we did have it in the back of our minds. As we continued, actually, there was the concerto competition. How every year there's a concerto competition in music schools where they have like a featured soloist to play with the orchestra. And during our second year in our doctorate degree, actually in the first year of the doctorate degree, I don't remember if it was the first or the second year. Oh yeah, in our second year of the doctorate degree, I won the concerto competition with the Rachmaninoff first piano concerto. And then on the second year, my husband won it with the Rachmaninoff second piano concerto. So we each took turns winning the concerto competition. And we had this friend from Dallas who's a CPA, very savvy businessman, who had been kind of like a fan and following us along in our journey, dear friend, supporter. So when I won the concerto competition, he flew from Dallas and attended the live concert. And the next year, when my husband won, he flew again from Dallas and attended the live concert. And in that meeting after the concert, we were hanging out and he said, now what? What's next? You guys are almost done with your doctorate degrees. And we told him, we're thinking of starting a music school. We have no idea how to do it, but we found this problem in terms of the preparation for the pre-college level. And we think we could, with our background and our experience, we think we could put together a very cool curriculum. But we just don't know what to do about it. And then he came back and he was at the gym in a treadmill reading a business magazine, like most typical CPAs do, I guess. And he read about this business incubator program that existed at the University of Miami where we were studying. And so he wrote back to us in an email and he said, you guys, remember that you told me you want to start a business? Did you know that your university has an actual business incubator program for aspiring entrepreneurs and is there? It's completely free. Program that you can go in and they can help you start a business. It's called the Launchpad and it's right there, like in your university. Wow. And of course, us being typical musicians, pianists, that all we did was practice all day and just, do the stuff that we needed. We had no idea. It was just like 5 minutes into the campus, right?
Yeah.
So we actually went in and just presented our idea. We made an appointment. We had we filled out all the application and they asked us, do you have any business experience? Of course, we said no. So we went in there and we said, we want to build a school. And they said, okay, and so how much money do you need? And we're like, we have no idea. So we completely totally started the process from zero, not knowing anything. And so they started helping us and mentoring us and coaching us. And next thing you know, 2 weeks after, they said there's this pitch competition, elevator pitch competition, where you can go and just pitch your plan. And then maybe you can get a prize and win and get an award and,
Like Shark Tank.
Like Shark Tank, right? An elevator pitch and so it's for the general university. And so here we were, and, at that point we were still just getting started. We didn't even know how much money we needed, what we were going to need it for or anything. But I just decided to jump in and I said, okay, I'll do it. And so I put together a little 90-second elevator pitch and I presented it. And I remember being, of course, the only musician in that whole event. When I finished my pitch, before me, everyone had gone in it and they were always pitching. And then the judges had lots of follow-up questions and things like that. So then here I go, I stand up and I have my 90-second pitch and no questions. Like the judges had no questions for me. And then, of course, I was just like, that's so weird because before me, they were asking questions to everyone, but oh, well. So I thought I had just made a complete fool of myself, that I was just like, what am I even doing here? I'm a pianist. I should be practicing. Why am I just giving a pitch to all these business people who don't know anything about music? And so I left thinking that I was just made a fool of myself. And then when I came back, I think I came back to like pick up something, paperwork or something. They said, "Oh no, you made it to the final round. You have to do this again tomorrow in a bigger stage. Like
Oh,
they're waiting for
wow.
you." Oh my gosh, Tracy, I got so nervous because at that point, I mean, you can imagine, like, I had never. So I had to do this final pitch in this big auditorium in front of a whole, like, big stage. And Tracy, I had my microphone and I was shaking. Like, my hand, it was this funny thing because I could not fake it. Like, I was just like, my hand was shaking as I was holding the microphone and just giving my 90-second pitch. I
That's so
was
funny
so
because here
nervous.
you are, someone who just played a concerto in front of a whole room full of people with probably not the same kind of nerves, right? It's a
Oh my
different level.
Oh my gosh, Tracy, I had never felt, I don't know, I was just the most like bizarre feeling, right? So I gave my pitch, and they had a few questions. There were different panel of judges. It was a great experience, nerve-wracking. The week after I played my final doctoral recital, like a whole hour of memorized music, I
Yeah.
was not nearly as nervous as I was giving that 90-second elevator pitch. So that was a great like first experience. I did not win the competition, which was fine, but it was just the first like just throwing me into this like business thing. I had to put this business, I had to go buy like a business looking suit because all I had was like these beautiful glamorous dresses of a concert pianist. Like I didn't
Yeah.
even have a business suit, you know what I mean? So I had to go buy myself something that looked kind of businessy. um, and so it was just like a very interesting learning process for me, and just to see the types of questions that the judges would ask. So I put myself in this very vulnerable position. And a few months later, the College of Business actually had a real business plan competition, like a full-fledged whole thing, multi-day event. And the Launchpad encouraged us to apply. They said you should send a business proposal, and we'll help you put it together. So what we did, we sent out the first just pre-business, like 5-page proposal. It got accepted, and then we had to present a full-fledged, like 20-page business plan with financials and all this stuff. And so then we did. And when we went to ask the competition director about more details, he said, "You know, this is a competition for MBA students. Like, this is not, you guys are from the from the School of Music. This is not like, I just want to make sure you understand what you're getting yourselves into because this is like the real thing. And I just don't want you to be roadkill." Like, those were his words, Tracy.
Roadkill?
Yeah, you
Oh
know
my gosh.
and so we were like, that's interesting that he's so skeptical of our potential, right?
Yeah.
In a way, it gave us more desire to just prove him wrong, right? So we prepared our plan, we worked really hard. It was a lot, we had a lot of support. um, and we presented our competition plan, and I showed up there. I did my pitch. At that point, I had already gone through a little bit of fire before, so I didn't feel as bad. I was like, okay, I survived the first pitch. I can do a longer 15-minute presentation and make myself pretend that I know what I'm doing here. Right? So I did that, and I pitched my plan with a lot of enthusiasm. And one of the judges, one actually, he wasn't a judge, but he was like, we had mentors, right? We had venture capitalists who were mentoring us and helping us prepare. He came after our presentation. We were proposing a music school. We were proposing an institution that would help musicians be more prepared, that would help people understand more about music and have a better life, and just the whole thing. And he came with tears in his eyes and just congratulated us on the presentation. He was just very emotional, and so we were all very emotional in the process. Next thing you know, we make it to the final rounds. When the competition director announced the winners, we were the wild card. They're like, this is the wild card, Superior Academy of Music. And then we ended up winning second prize, Best Written Business Plan, and Best Entrepreneurial Spirit Award. So we won 3 prizes, raised almost $10,000, got an investor to become part of the business and supporting us. And we launched our school. Like, that was it. That was the event
Wow.
that allowed us to just boom, let's do this. We gained the confidence that it was going to happen. People were excited. And so we did it. We opened our school as soon as we finished our doctoral program. And it's been almost 10 years since then. Our students have gone on to win scholarships at universities, to win awards, to win a number of certificates of excellence. We partnered with the Royal Conservatory of Music in Canada. I've been very close to them, and I became an examiner for them as well. And so we developed, in conjunction with the curriculum from the Royal Conservatory of Music, a unique program to help musicians really get to the next level. So it allowed us to just really achieve the goal that we set up for the school. and we were featured on PBS twice. It's just been a
Wow,
great journey, to
it's
kind of run that
amazing.
school. And now for the past 5 years, since moving here, we're running it remotely. And my husband is mainly the one who's now in charge of it. But yeah, that's, I would say, my first like entrepreneurial adventure in starting, um, and so after that, I've had several more, but we can dive into those little by little. I don't want to,
Yeah,
just be too
that's amazing.
long-winded on my answers. I know you have more questions.
Yeah, well, so that is so amazing that essentially the interview process of your doctoral study was kind of what launched you forward towards that. So
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
What did you discover in those interviews was there anything that you did that you discovered while doing those interviews that changed your mind? Because it sounds like you had a really solid direction, and you explain it so eloquently in a way that makes it sound so easy and organic, and I know it probably wasn't. You're like telling a 10-year journey in like a few minutes. But what are some of those things that you learned from interviewing those entrepreneurial type people that gave you sort of some fuel for your direction that you went on?
Well, actually, I think what happened was that in the interviewing process, and there was also a lot of like reading and researching all of
Mm-hmm.
the like existing resources that were there, which are not that many actually back then. Now there's many more, but at that point in 2011, there were not that many books and resources on music entrepreneurship as there are now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I started to see a lot of common trends, and since then, obviously, in all the work since then in the past 10 years, it's all been a matter of reaffirming certain characteristics that musicians have that allow them to be successful, that allow them to take those next steps. And it started in that moment in my doctoral studies, but since then in everything else that I've done, I can really say it's been a matter of understanding how the perspective that you have as an artist, the intention and the belief in your own capabilities is what will allow you to succeed and to get to that next level. There are many ways to get there, but if you don't have the internal belief in your own potential first, in your capabilities, that like no matter how many tools and resources and strategies you're exposed to, you're not really going to be willing to step into that vulnerability and to step into that place of action without knowing what the end result is going to be. So I could say, it's one of the things I realized in the process of doing my research as well as since then is that the best way for you to be successful and to develop your career is it's going to be closely related to your willingness to take risks, to your
Mm-hmm.
willingness to step into the uncomfortable, to be vulnerable, and to do things when you're not really sure about the outcomes. And that in a way goes really against the mentality of musicians because we practice, practice, practice and try to polish our craft and don't want to do
Yes.
things until we know that everything is like so safe and sure, even though we
Yes.
know it's never that way, right? Because when you walk
Right.
on stage, you never know. But we try, like we
Mm-hmm.
try to be perfect and to make our art and our craft like just be completely polished and shining like a diamond as much as we can before we put it out there. But in the world of business and in entrepreneurship, when you're creating a venture, when you're creating something, you can only really polish it by actually getting yourself in the mud. Like you just have to get it there, start exposing it to people, start seeing what people think about it, seeing how people respond. And from that point on, you continue evolving and making it better and better and better, or pivoting if you have to. Sometimes you may need to pivot. So I would say that has been, and it continues to be up until now, one of the key aspects that I've realized helps musicians develop their careers, develop their businesses, step into new ways of reinventing what they've been doing is how much they're willing to do things when they don't know what the outcome is going to look like and to explore things that they're not always like assured that they can do it.
Mm.
So that's in a very general sense, like one observation that I noticed among all the people that I've interviewed since then, and you know,
Awesome. Yeah. So one of the things you just said was about, knowing what to expect when you start your business. And so you went ahead and you created this business and you had the support, but you still didn't have necessarily the clients yet. So what was your, you were building the school, but what was your next step after you started the school as far as finding the people to come there and pay you to learn? I mean, we're talking like back in the day, right? When it was just starting.
Absolutely. So my husband and I had a piano studio that we taught through our home for the years we were doing the doctorate. And so our initial idea was that we would transfer those students into our academy. So initially, that was the plan. And when we announced that we were starting a music school, some of the students were very excited and continued on, but others were actually not willing to drive a little further away. They were just kind of used to being in that area of the town. And so we actually ended up not starting the school with the amount of students we anticipated. So it was a big of a stressor. We were thinking, wow, we were counting on having all these students to start off, and probably a third of them ended up staying. So it was not easy. We had signed a 3-year lease in a mall. We rented a facility. It was a big financial commitment. Um, so we worked on spreading the word about our grand opening. One of the parents of our students was actually a PR agent, so she helped us get some news coverage, which was really wonderful. And so that helped kind of spread the word. Our students also helped like spread the word amongst their friends. And so we started with just very few students. I don't know if we even had 20 or 30 or probably less than that. Um, and from that point on, Tracy, it was really, I mean, my brother-in-law was also a very savvy marketer, so he helped us with some of the internet presence aspects in terms of creating some ads at that time, I believe, and just all the things that we would need to develop an internet presence. Because obviously we had a website for our piano studio, but we didn't have a website for the academy. So we had to build, not only the physical aspect of the business, but also the online aspect of the business, right? Because that's
Right.
ultimately how parents would find us. So we really assembled a team to support us, at least on that part. And from there, we were also very strategically located in a wonderful neighborhood. So we did some activities in the neighborhood. We participated in some festivals where youth musicians would play, and we would take our students. We would actually take one of our pianos into those places and transport like a digital piano. We would put it in our car and take it to these festivals and showcase our students. We did all sorts of activities to get the word out. We even sponsored a cycling competition. I remember we brought one of our voice teachers and she sang the national anthem for this cycling competition. And my husband and I made these t-shirts with our Sam logo. I mean, we were doing the whole
Wow.
bootstrapping marketing thing.
Yeah.
We put our banner, when you go to those like festivals that you have the banner with the side and the table. Like we did all sorts of grassroots marketing efforts
Mm.
to build the business. We would hand out flyers. Um, and eventually it just grew. I think we added like incentives for our students who referred us to other students, things like that. But it was not a rapid process, Tracy. It took
Right.
time.
Right.
But I think it was really a matter of just developing strong relationships with our clients, and encouraging them. I really feel that there were a lot of people in the community that really liked our business concept. They liked what we stood for. They understood our values. They understood the philosophy around our business,
Mm-hmm.
and they understood like who we were and our story as well and what we brought to it. So I think there was a lot of personalization of the business as well. We were not just a music school. We were
Right.
Fabiana, Claure, and William Villaverde, and putting that school there together. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a lot. It has to do with the same exact thing as growing an audience online, right? I mean, you're making connections. People are getting really clear on who you are and why you're there and building a relationship. So you did it in person, but you also had to do it online. Now, do you offer things online as well?
Well, since the pandemic, we've had to pivot to 100% online for several
Yeah,
months. So it was a complete reinvention of our school,
right.
even though we're still physically there, and it's a very expensive process because we're still paying retail
Yeah.
rent, right? So it was a very, very critical moment in our business when the pandemic hit. Um, and so we pivoted to 100% online. And then about a month ago, we reopened the space. Now it was already like legal to reopen. So we have some of our teachers are teaching in person, but several of them are still teaching online. So right now we are a hybrid. Yeah, we have both.
Right. Okay, so that's so cool. So you moved back to Texas. And what brought you back to Texas? So now your business is still thriving in Miami or pivoting. And I think it's awesome that you're doing that in real time. What do you do now in Texas?
So about 5 years into running my school, I started to feel a desire to move into a new journey and explore new challenges and continue growing. So I started really thinking, what would be something that I would like to do that I could feel that I'm still being challenged, still being placed in a position of being a student in a sense and learning and developing and vulnerable in a certain way. And I wasn't really sure what that would look like, Tracy. I just started to envision that there was more for me out there, that there was more that I could do with what I knew. I wasn't really sure what it would be. And so at that point, I think a few weeks after, the opportunity to come to the University of North Texas showed up in my inbox. I received an email through this network that I belong to, which is the Network of Music Career Development Officers, NetMcDoa, they're called. And I had been a part of their network since I finished my doctoral degree because, entrepreneurship had been something that I'd always been kind of continuing to think about and study. And an email just showed up in my inbox with the position they were announcing for the University of North Texas. They wanted to build a new program around music business and entrepreneurship, and they needed someone to kind of build the whole thing. And I had never really thought about teaching music business and entrepreneurship. I had taught piano all my life. I had, been a pianist, and of course I was running a business, but I had never really thought about teaching this. I'd never done it. And the position required, in addition to all the different requirements, it required experience teaching this at a higher institution. But I decided to apply. And my husband at that time said, "But what are we going to do with our school if you get the job? Like, we have a business here. Like, we can't just." And I remember telling him, "Oh, let's not worry about that. Let's cross that bridge if we even get there. I'm just going to apply. I mean, who knows? Higher ed is so competitive these days. So I'm just going to apply. We're just going to see. I mean, I'm just going to apply." And I
Yeah.
remember him looking at me and saying, "But if you get the job, you're going to want to say yes." And I was like, "Well, let's not worry about it. I'm just going to see." So I applied, and it was I really just didn't think much. I just said, "I'm just going to see what happens." And when they eventually, selected me and invited me to accept the position, that's when I really had to start thinking about it. To
Yeah.
be like, okay, how's this exactly going to work? Because we
Right.
have a school here. It's not like we can just pack and go. And at that point, I was also a mom, a new mom. I had a 1 year old. So it was a complicated decision. And my husband and I really had to sit down and think about like how we were going to make this work. And at that point, we explored a couple of options. We explored the option of moving the school to Texas and starting it all over again here. We explored the option of selling the school. We explored the option of just leaving it there and like delegating it, restructuring it. And after consultation with our coaches and mentors, we decided that the best option was to restructure it, but keep it there. Since we had already a clientele, we had already all the store history of it. We had been 5 years in business, as you know. It's not easy for a business to stay in business past the first year,
Right.
past 3 years, even 5 years. It's like it's a true feat, right? Especially in the music business. So we were just like, we've built a lot of equity here. That we've built like this has been a lot of sweat and tears, and we just didn't feel like just starting all over again. And plus, we were parents now. I mean, we just didn't feel that we had it in us to do everything we did to start our first business.
Yeah.
So we restructured the school. We restructured everything. We hired new teachers to teach to take care of the piano portion, which is what we used to teach. We downsized also the space a little bit to save a bit in rent. And first year, Tracy, was an adventure. Like we really had to figure out how to make it work. It was not easy. It was not easy at all. Uh, in fact, some of our mentors and things thought we were crazy. They would say like, you just can't just leave a business and run it from halfway through the country. I mean, that's suicidal. It's not going to work.
Hmm.
And so we, again, took a risk. We didn't know if it was going to work or not. We just said, we're going to hope that it does.
Right.
And so the first year was really rough, but after that, it actually ended up working out for us and growing. And eventually it started actually becoming more financially profitable than when we were there, both of us working in it full time. So we were able to restructure the business, run it more efficiently. You know how it is when you're pressed for time and resources, how you become better at what you do because you have no
Mm.
choice.
Right.
So it ended up becoming better and more successful on multiple fronts than even when we were both there full time doing everything ourselves. So we're very grateful for that experience to have been able to learn how to build a business so that it could actually run without us. And it's been
Yeah.
now 5 years almost that we have been running it remotely from Texas.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so now you head the department at the University of Texas, but you're also an entrepreneur in the sense that you teach online programs. And so I know that you help. I mean, at least your last program you focused on women in music business, but I know you're expanding that. So how have you helped women in business up until this point, and what are you thinking about creating now going forward after your experience doing that?
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. Well, as I was mentioning earlier, in this journey starting the music business and entrepreneurship program at the University of Texas, I started teaching musicians, right, how to create their careers, how to build their businesses. And that was a wonderful journey for me to learn how to dissect my experience from doing to being able to like create frameworks and methodologies and actual, pedagogical concepts to transfer that experience into students.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing so, not surprisingly, my main goal was to help my students launch businesses while in school. Because in my own experience from being a student, I knew how important it was for musicians to not only learn about entrepreneurship, but actually experience it and do it. So,
Yeah.
guess what was the first thing I decided to create when I joined UNT?
A program to help them build
A
businesses.
competition, just like the
Oh,
one
a
I did.
competition. Oh,
So
that's
that's
exciting.
why when I got there, in fact, that's something that I proposed when I was applying for the job. I said, if I were to come here, I would want to create a music business competition so that students can have a way to pitch their businesses, step into this
Right.
place of vulnerability. Because remember, I went through it, I knew what it was like, and
Yeah,
get
and also,
money.
and it's true because like when you were telling that story, I was thinking like, too bad everyone doesn't get to do that, you know? So because there aren't that many competitions like that I've heard of.
No.
So
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 that
I
was my
bet that
number
helped
one
you,
goal.
and I
You
bet that
know,
helped you get that job too, right? Because
I don't
people
know.
have.
I don't know if it was that, but I know that I knew I wanted to create that opportunity for my students. So thankfully, the administration shared my vision, and they were excited about it as well. So they supported me. They provided the
Mhm.
funding for it, and I was able to help students raise money and start their businesses. Receive uh, you know $20,000 in cash awards every year since then. So we've had our competition, and it allowed the school to really reach national visibility. And Billboard named our program one of the top 50 music business programs in the country every single
Cool.
year since I started there.
So
So
how did you raise the money to have that award money?
it was from the university administration, from the college. So
Oh,
they were able to support that vision initially to start off. And after that, I also was able to reach out to external sponsors, and we actually got Kawai to support the competition last year. And so we've been expanding our sponsorship opportunities ever since. But yeah, so it's just been a great journey to see musicians in school create their businesses and launch their careers through
It's
what they do
amazing.
while still being students. So that was a very like fun experience because I lived it myself as a student and I
Yeah.
benefited from it so much. So to be able to create that for the students that I've been mentoring was just wonderful. And this earlier this year, uh, I had decided to expand my work as a musician's business coach to go beyond what I've been doing at the university level into now working with musicians from all over the world in the online space. And as you know, I started this process before the pandemic hit. And my initial goal was to help, especially women musicians, develop a business in the context of also being able to not have to sacrifice their artistic dreams and family life. I had just had my second son, so I was a new mom all over again, and I was just going through this. I was researching also the lives of women musicians, entrepreneurs, and preparing a concert, which kind of on the side note is something that I'd be happy to share about later because it kind of ties into the timing that we have right now. But I was all into like the role of women in music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided that I would love to be able to help other women musicians find ways to develop their businesses and create their careers, even though they may be having to juggle a lot of responsibilities as mothers so I was just very inspired to kind of create a program around that idea and especially with the idea of helping musicians not feel that they have to sacrifice their artistry, their artistic and creative side in the process of building a business, but finding a way to unite the different elements of their personal and professional interests. So that's where I started kind of reflecting on how I had been doing this over the past, 4 years prior to this. And the notion of an umbrella framework came to me that like this is how I've been doing this. So that's where I came up with like the title of my framework called the Musician's Profit Umbrella, because I really realized that it's in uniting the different aspects of who we are that we can create a very solid business brand and feel very fulfilled in the process of developing it because we're not putting anything away. We're actually embracing everything, all the different aspects of what we are, all our personal interests. So I was able to recruit a wonderful group of 12 powerful women in my program since June. And it's just been a wonderful journey to help them see their potential, Tracy. Remember, like as I mentioned earlier, be willing to step into the uncomfortableness of starting something.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process that is so much more internal than it is external, you know, and helping. I just love that process of empowering musicians to realize how brilliant they are and how amazing they are and how they can transfer that into the business world. So it's just been great, and my clients are just thriving. And it's just wonderful to help them go through the whole process of becoming a more, um, I guess, comprehensive entity, right? Because they've been doing different things in different roles as educators, as performers, and somehow they've been siloed in the different roles. And
Mm-hmm.
so to be able to put these things together and to say you could actually create a business where you don't have to put anything away and you can actually use all these skills and provide them in a way that solves a problem for a specific group of people.
So, can you give us some examples of some kind of businesses, how people have brought together all of their skills into one umbrella so they can
Yeah,
without putting away? Because I know a lot of people think, oh, if I'm a business owner, that means I'm not a performer anymore or I'm not a musician anymore. So,
I love it.
yeah, tell us some examples of some of your clients'
Yeah.
businesses.
So, for example, I have a client who teaches voice at a university. She's a long time, educator for several decades, and she's, a voice faculty and a singer. But she also went through a deep journey of health issues and personal like health issues that she had to figure out for herself and kind of heal herself because going the traditional medical route did not solve anything for her. So she had to go through this journey of mindfulness and holistic healing and natural healing and all of these things. And so, as we talked about what she would like to create outside of her existing role as a university professor, she wanted to create a vocal program that incorporated these additional mindful elements and health elements and nutrition elements to help kind of unite not only the performance track of becoming a singer, but also incorporating all of this wellness aspect of it because of what she had to go through. So she was able to create this wonderful coaching program that incorporates both her side as a singer, as a pedagogue, as a vocal coach, an instructor, as an academic, as well as all her research and interest in personal side into, wellness and holistic care. And she started working with clients and was able to sell a 4-figure package right off the bat. And it's just been great to see, how how by putting the things that you have in your life and creating a program out of that, it can attract people who are potentially looking beyond what is just on the surface level of what you can offer. So that's been one example. Another example is another client who travels a lot and has uh, I think in 20 years has moved 10 times and has a lot of experience traveling and and so and she's a musician and a pianist and so the program that she decided she wanted to create was a coaching program for musicians who travel, for musicians who are constantly having to relocate and restart their careers, or for musicians who are in the process of reinventing their careers even in the same place, like during the pandemic where they have to completely shift and kind of pivot. So she, created this beautiful offer that is all about, relocating musicians and musicians who are in this process of kind of restarting. And it's about uniting her experience as someone who has moved a lot, who has had to reinvent herself a lot. And everywhere she's gone, she's been able to not only um, find opportunities to be employed, but also create concerts, create ventures. So by putting those things together, then her offer goes way more than just being a pianist or a piano teacher or a coach. It goes about incorporating all the other things about her skill sets and how those can help certain musicians in different moments of their lives. So those are a couple of examples of like businesses that are my clients have put together in the process of combining the different aspects of their identity.
I love that. That is so great. Yeah, I mean, it's so great to see that being done in real time as people finally are allowed. I encourage this when people build their audiences to really tap into what makes you unique, because really that's the only way that you're not in direct competition with another person who plays the same instrument as you. And I love that who you are in your business is someone who stands for building a business that reflects all your areas of expertise, even if they're not totally related. Like you can't directly draw a line from wellness to singing, right? But of course there's a connection because it's human. It's the human experience. And I think generally as musicians, we tend to say, okay, over here I play horn, but over here I'm really interested in this thing. And over here I'm really an expert on this. I've spent lots of time learning about this. But you think that it all has to be separate. I talk with people a lot about when they're first starting their audience, and then they think, oh, well, I need a Facebook page for myself as a singer, and my Facebook page for myself as a teacher, and a Facebook page for myself as the other thing. And I'm like, no, well, not only are you creating more work for yourself because you have to put content on all of those things, but why not bring it all together, because that's just who you are. So this directly speaks to the work I do as well, and I really appreciate that you do this work too. So
Oh my goodness. Fantastic,
with,
Tracy.
thank you. You work with women mostly, but do you work with men too? If someone, if this is resonating with someone who's listening and they're like, okay, yeah, but I'm a guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, as you may know, I've recently announced an expansion in my business because even though my initial like launch concept was to help women be able to launch their businesses and still not have to sacrifice their artistic side or their family life, I've since then realized that in fact the work that I do really focuses not only on women, it transcends gender. It really does. It's really about helping musicians find a way to create the prosperity that they need for their careers through a place of flow and ease, and through a way where they're not giving up their artistic side and their creative side. What can happen many times is that sometimes when you're trying to build a business, you think you have to only focus on the business aspect. And in fact, when you look at how you could bring in your performing side, your creative side, it can help you actually become more distinct and separate you from the crowd and help set you apart. So I actually love being able to tap into what is it about your creative side that makes you thrive, that fulfills you, that fills your cup, that gives you that confidence, that energy to want to grow this business, to want to solve this problem that you're trying to solve. How can we infuse that artistic side into the business development strategy so that you don't feel that, oh, if I could just practice more, but I just don't have time because I have to make money? No, if you could see that practicing is actually a mechanism for you to create that income, build that prosperity, because you build it as part of your business activities, whether it's for messaging, whether it's for content creation, whether it's for brand development, any aspect that you may think of. It's about finding ways to infuse that creative and artistic side in the business development process. So, as all of this, again, because I'm in a constant state of evolution and growing myself, as all of this has kind of formalized and gotten more clear in my head, I've realized that this is something that everyone can benefit, men, women, everything in between.
Yeah.
It's really something that I am very passionate about helping musicians not have to give that side of their lives up in the process of developing their businesses. So I recently announced that I was expanding my coaching program now to work with everyone. I renamed my Facebook group now. It's called the Musicians Creating Prosperity Group. And it's all about really igniting that limitless life in a way where you have both the financial empowerment as well as the creative fulfillment.
I love that. That's amazing. And it's so interesting, like in real time, as you're creating your program, just like you've helped other people do, you realize in real time how you want to change and evolve things. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. And I have a I have a an upcoming program coming up where I would love to share. And
Yeah,
I'm not sure when
absolutely.
this podcast is going to be. When are you? Because it may be after the fact. I'm not sure. When is this going to be
It
released?
is coming. I have to double check. When does your program start?
It's on Sunday, my virtual recital. So I'm not sure how quickly this is.
Oh, this is coming out in a few weeks.
Oh,
So
okay. So it's going to be after the fact. Okay.
that's
No, that's
okay.
fine.
But can they watch it later?
No, it'll only be live
Oh,
streamed. Yes.
that's cool.
So, yeah, well, I'm just going to talk about it anyway because it
Sure.
kind of ties into what we're talking about, like as far as an example of how I've kept my creative and artistic side alive in this process.
Yes.
And so I mentioned earlier that I was preparing this research project on the lives of women musician entrepreneurs, and I was initially planning on sharing the program, which consists of spoken remarks, piano performances, and film. I was able to collaborate with a filmmaker. I was initially planning on presenting that in March, and because of the pandemic, I had to postpone it. But a few months ago, I decided I wanted to create a virtual version of it where I could share it online. And so on Sunday, I'm going to be preparing this virtual lecture recital called "Women as Musician Entrepreneurs," an exploration of Fanny Mendelssohn, Clara Schumann, and Teresa Carreño's works and career ventures. So it's basically a presentation where I showcase the works and the lives of these three amazing women musicians and composers, but with a focus on their entrepreneurial side, the
Oh,
focus
that's so
on what they
cool.
did and how they built their careers, how they were able to sustain multi-decade long careers. And it's just been a wonderful just process of seeing how these women were able to juggle all of this while raising seven children, and just dealing with all the things they had and the patriarchal conditionings of the time. So it's just been a really wonderful just journey of discovery and research. And even though the live event is going to happen on Sunday, by the time this podcast goes out, it will already have passed. It is something that I'm very interested in sharing in other settings, in other institutions, or in any music teaching organization. So I think if anyone would want to listen to this concert and be a part of it and kind of see the whole thing, I would be always open to presenting it for their particular institutions or
Awesome.
organizations. So I would be always open to having a conversation around doing that, even in a virtual setting. So I think this is still going to be something relevant that someone may be interested in learning. And of course, they can
Exactly.
learn about it on my website. I have more information about it, but the program is there. So I'm always interested in sharing it in as many settings as I can.
Absolutely. And even though this will already have been passed by the time this podcast comes out, you're going to share with me all those links and I'll share them on my social media before it happens so my followers and podcast listeners can still catch it even if they hear this episode beforehand. Hopefully,
Oh, okay,
I can
okay.
start promoting this podcast that's coming out in a
Oh, I
few
see.
weeks. Yeah, I'll do
I
that.
see.
I mean, there's
I
always a
see.
way around it, right? I'm the
Okay.
boss, so I can do whatever I want.
You sure are.
That's the best thing about it.
I love
So,
it.
this is so great. Thank you so much, Fabiana, for being on this show today. And I will make sure that all the links to your social media and your
Yeah.
website and everything about your school and everything is in the show notes.
Thank you,
And this has been
Tracy.
such a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you
I
so
appreciate
much.
it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And, you're doing such a wonderful work in your program. And I just want to, you know, let you know how much I admire the work that you've been putting together and helping musicians build their audiences, which we all know how valuable that is, how indispensable that is in terms of building anything. Like you can't do anything unless you have an audience. And that's kind of like the 101, like the starting point for any business development process is to build that audience, nurture that community. And so I've actually learned so much from your content. I've enjoyed following
Thank
you
you.
even before I met you. So I just have to say, you're just doing such a great service for our industry, and we definitely need more. We need more of this. There's just never enough. It's just so great to hear everything you're doing, and so congratulations also to the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Fabiana. It's been a pleasure. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tracy.